some of these early books from Star Wars are weird, man. So we are going into the Children of the Jedi. I have my notes here. I can only imagine what this would be like going through in chronological order, and I'm sure people do that. You would go through the Old Republic, which in the expanded universe is some of the very latest stuff, and I have read some of those. I've read most of them actually because before this channel, I was going to go through it in chronological order and I was in the comics and I got all confused, but it was cool. And you could see sort of ideas present that were developed earlier on in, present in these Old Republic books. You go through the prequels and things like that. But the earliest stuff that was ever written, I can only imagine getting to the novelization of A New Hope, and then you go to Splinter of the Mind's Eye and go, what the heck? This is so unlike anything I've read elsewhere in Star Wars. And you'd get to Jedi Academy, all right. You get to Crystal Star, that's so bizarre. And now this one, very strange stuff. I'm sure that I would like it more doing it in the mode that I'm doing now in the publication order than I would have in chronological order, because this is so weird, man. Uh and I think if the Crystal Star and this are considered the low points, I think I'm in an okay spot, because while it is not my favorite by any means, I did like aspects of it. So I have these notes. I'm going to just speak openly about everything. So I don't know yet about the entire trilogy, this Callista trilogy, where it goes into Darksaber by Kevin J. Anderson. And I think Planet of Twilight goes back to Barbara Hambly. Hambly? I don't know how to pronounce that. But anyway, interesting stuff. The Bantam era sure takes a lot of swings at the very least, and I can't fault him on that, even though some stuff just is way out there. But same with the early novelizations, they leaned a little bit more in the sci-fi aspect of things. I really like that though. And it won't be for everyone. So one thing that I can say about this book and about Barbara Hambly's writing itself is it can be quite lyrical and beautiful at times. There is I marked this down on page 6, where Leia says this. This is the only thing I'm going to read to you. If you want to skip it, it'll only be just 30 seconds or something anyway. So, but I wanted to read this. And this is Leia talking about having the lists of people who constructed the Death Star or worked on the Death Star. So I have the lists. I know who worked on the Death Star, who Palpatine hired in his think tanks, who taught at the Omwet Orbital Training Center. And I also know they're out of the Republic's jurisdiction. But I also know how easy it would be for me to juggle credits and treasury funds and hire people like Philgus Green and Danik Jericho, or any of those smuggler friends that they talk about, to find these people and just make them disappear without a trial, no questions asked, no possibility of release or a technicality, just because I know they're guilty, because I want it so. She sighed, and some of the pain eased from her face as she met his eyes again. Luke talks about the power that lies in the dark side. The Force isn't the only thing that has the dark side, Han. And the tricky thing about the dark side is that it's so easy to use, and it gets you what you think you want. I thought that was actually quite poetic and profound in some ways. Where did my note go? In a lot of ways, in the same way that I felt like The Empire Strikes Back was really digging into almost a spiritual aspect of the dark side versus the light. I think that Barbara Hambly was Hambly. I think that she was trying to do that. I found that this was trying to really delve into maybe the mystical side of things. Again, it was very much a hard sci-fi. In a lot of ways, this was really dark. There was a description of somebody's memory talking about some women with their children being lined up and having their babies basically taken away and destroyed right in front of them. And so really dark stuff. It was almost a gothic sort of tone, which I like that. And so maybe some of that is why I didn't totally hate it, because it felt like something kind of familiar to me in that way. It was really melodramatic in some ways. Some things hit, some things really didn't. We have uh man, Children of the Jedi. Very strange thing, and a very strange title, considering that that seems more like a side quest. There are these the they're at this planet with this Luke and Leia and Han and the regular crew. They are there at the planet of the Ethors or something like that. They're the aliens that kind of have the long shaped face going up. You can see them in the Mos Eisley Cantina, one of them. And they're there for this meeting of time that happens every 3 years or something. And as they are there, some guy named Drub McNub, or that can't be right, not McNub, McCrub, yeah, McCrub. He shows up all crazy and saying the children of the Jedi. Oh, what did he say? Da, 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 da. They hid the children down the well, and like goes to attack Han, and it becomes this thing where it's developed where there are these children of the Jedi from an earlier time kind of hidden, and the Han and Leia will be off almost on a side quest going to find where they are and what that could mean and all that. And at the same time, we have Luke, who has 3PO with him instead of R2, and they are going, they are on this other quest, and they run into what appears to be another super weapon. But as they're going through almost this meteor storm, one of the big meteors starts shooting at them. And it turns out that it has been turned into a weapon called the Eye of Palpatine. And really interesting stuff, because as you go in there, and I should mention we have a couple former students of Luke, one named Cray and one Nikos. But Nikos is not really Nikos anymore. And it appears at first that Nikos's soul or something has been programmed into a body of sorts, in the same way that we had developed in True Sepultura. So we know that kind of thing can happen. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And so we have that, but it's him, but not really him, or, it's kind of a part of the story is trying to figure that out. And Cray is in love with him. And yeah, that's a side sort of romance plot happening. But as we get inside of the Eye of Palpatine, which has been programmed to destroy this Children of the Jedi group, inside there are Gamorreans, which are those pig-like kind of dudes from the guards in Jabba's palace. And some of them have just bits of stormtrooper armor on them. There are Jawas in here. There are sand people in here, and all different types that have been picked up. And there is this AI sort of leader, kind of, or there's this AI sort of thing that's been awakened, and is picking people up and indoctrinating them into being, into thinking that they're Jedi. But at the same time, there's like this intertribal Gamorrean thing happening that Luke gets all caught up in, and Cray gets taken away. And at this moment, I thought, okay, I can be in on this. I like the Eye of Palpatine thing. I like that there might be this crazy AI he's working against. I don't mind this. We also have, it's working a little bit in Luke. It's been working in Cray, and so, it's interesting. I was at least enough into the book at this point to think I can do this. I can do this. And it even has some fun jokes where they all have this kind of silvery tape holding the bits of stormtrooper armor together, and Luke gets a injury on his leg, and it is held together by some of this tape as well. And they call it engine tape. And there's this note here. It's basically duct tape, right? Not a bandage, he thought, identifying another sound, the slick, shrill, searing noise of engine tape being pulled off a roll, a familiar sound. We all can hear it. If it weren't for engine tape, the rebellion would have collapsed in its first year. So, little quips like that where she's kind of winking at you. I like that sort of thing. And man, Luke gets beat the heck up in this. So the Will is on a mission to destroy the Jedi still. And whenever we skip to Han and Leia's side mission, which is, the name of the book, I just groaned. I really did not love my time with them, even though there were points that would show up where, at one point, and this is all spoilers again, at one point, R2D2 even attacks Han, shows up in their room, and while they're doing their thing, and even though Star Wars never gets really high content warning, this definitely implied more things than your average Star Wars novel. And so R2D2 goes in, and he has his little cutter thing, and attacks Han. And they think that's weird. And we have in the side story, someone's been controlling R2D2 and can control, it's not like his wires are all changed, but something's happening. And we'll get back to that. But the point where it all sort of went downhill for me was with Callista. And if you know who Callista is, I don't know. This is the first I've heard of Callista, but it is implied that this is a character who was somebody in the prequel era. I don't know if they will be mentioned. If you know, feel free to let me know. But it's like she was a person in the prequel era, and she gave herself up as a noble sort of sacrifice. And now she, in the same way that in the Truce of Bakura, or this Nico character has been inhabiting electronics of some sort, Callista is now almost like an AI. She's inside the machine. And so it gets really weird as Luke is doing his thing, is fighting against the Will and figuring things out, trying to help Cray and all this. And Nico has a restraining bolt. And all of a sudden we have Luke having these visions and communicating with Callista, making contact with her, and falling madly in love with the dreams and the visions that he's having. So this is where it gets really weird. And I see I think what Barbara Hambly is trying to do, and I can see why some people would be really into this, I think. Because it seems like she's trying to tell a story bigger than Star Wars, trying to tell this other thing and go at it at a few different angles. Go at it through Luke and Callista's angle, also with Cray and Nico, but also we have humans against the machine, and so it's like very interesting. So one of the things that it seems like she's trying to figure out or talk about within this book is the nature of humanity, for one thing, obviously, in the same way that I love characters like Data, I've mentioned. Um, but Luke is falling in love with almost like the soul of Callista, which is, it sounds very beautiful on the surface for sure. And but is not she's not a physical presence. And so we have a scene in one of these dreams that it's kind of implied that they're getting physical in a digital sort of dreamlike sense, and that would turn a lot of people off. I thought, okay, all right, I'll read this. But in a lot of ways, the whole Callista thing to me made Luke seem so messed up, like super damaged. Um, and if I was Leia, we'll get to that near the end where he kind of reunites with Leia and Han at the end. But I would think Luke, this is weird. All this whole thing has been weird, but that becomes sort of a thing. And up to this point in the timeline, the only romantic connections Luke has had in any respect has been Leia, his twin sister, before he knew who she really was, and before anyone knew, and Mara Jade. And so it's been surprising that we haven't really had any, it's not like Mara Jade and the Thrawn trilogy were a major thing, but it seemed implied that it could be a thing. But right now, Mara Jade and Lando are a thing. And so everyone's got someone, and Luke's getting this Callista character, which I don't love. I don't love it, but it is what it is. At least for this stage of, don't tell me a bunch of stuff of where things develop. I think I know already, right? It's her. But I haven't read any of the books of that, but I'm pretty sure that's where it goes. Um, let me look at my notes. Yeah, it's like she's a former hero, and that all happens. And we go back to Luke and Leia, and this is all different POVs. We go back, or Han and Leia, and she runs into this, a very strange sort of area that she's in, but it's kind of boring and dull. But she runs into this person that she recognizes. And it turns out to be, how Mara Jade was the Emperor's hand in the Thrawn trilogy. This is a different Emperor's hand. So apparently he had more than one, but also was a former concubine of, the former concubine of the Emperor. Oh, it's gross. The only thing grosser than that would be working at Jabba's palace, probably, right? And so she has a son as well, this former concubine. I thought, what does this boy look like? What's he like? And there are rumors that this is the Emperor's son. And she wants to, but he's very young. And she's trying to build him up to one day be the new emperor. And it seems like that could be a thing, and it maybe still could be a thing. I don't know where it goes. Uh, but turns out he isn't. He isn't the Emperor's son. Just to put that to rest, it seems at least implied or said later that that is not the thing. And so, one thing that he does is able to do, though, he had some kind of implant here, and he's able to control things like the Eye of Palpatine. He's able to control droids through the Force, which is something, kind of control them, mind manipulate them in the same way that Obi-Wan would do, or any Jedi would do to the weak-minded. And that's why R2-D2 attacked Leia and Han. And so he can do that. And so he might be a prime candidate of some kind of villain, but he is super insufferable at the moment, and actually way worse than his mom. Um, so let me just go to the end here. So Luke is madly in love with this person who doesn't have a body, just her soul in the machine. And Cray is in love with Nico. But it turns out that Nico's not really in there. I should have also mentioned, this is all over the place. They also worked under this brilliant person who developed the same sort of, an expert in the same sort of technology. And so they know how to do this sort of thing. And it was so she's almost been in love maybe with a Nico that really isn't him. Just the idea of a Nico. And so that's really relevant today with how people really get chummy with their AI bots sometimes. And it seems like some of that's happening. And she wants to go where the real Nico is, and he's not here. But maybe he's off where the Jedi go when they disappear, when they die. And so there's this sacrifice that she does at the end. And Luke didn't want her to do this. And Callista didn't want her to do this, but she wants to go wherever Nico is. And she is also offering up her body, which Han said that she's already beautiful, but she's offering it up to Callista to have a body. And when Cray turns and Luke sees her, he sees these gray eyes, and sometimes he would see these eyes in the face in like the visions and things like that, and he recognizes that this is Callista, and they embrace and they can't believe it. They're just so happy. And as I'm reading this, I'm going, because good thing Cray was already hot, apparently. But like, would it be the same sort of love story if Callista got put into a Gamorrean, the pig dude, or like a hut? One of the huts? Would they because Luke it almost seems like it doesn't matter to Luke any of the physical. And yeah, I know that's a beautiful thing, but it just, I can tell where Barbara Hambly what she was trying to write, and that will land differently with different people. But to me, it sort of seemed weird how it all went, and how he fell madly in love with her, just how that kind of went. Feels very much a puppy love sort of thing happening, but we'll see. We will see where that goes. I didn't love it. There's good weird, which I kind of liked the Crystal Star. I found that to be good weird. This was almost too weird. I liked elements of the Eye of Palpatine storyline. The Luke and Leia, or the Han and Leia sort of thing, I liked a lot less. And then the stuff with Callista, maybe it's just the way that Barbara Hambly wrote it, because it can be confusing at some ways, and there's so many metaphors and similes, and you just are like, Barbara, just tell me the story. Just tell me a story. And so, curious. I wonder how many people really, really love it. I know that there are those who do, and I wouldn't fault them for that. And I certainly wouldn't fault people who feel like this is just the most contrived. It's just a little much. A little much, I would say. But I am somewhere in the middle. So next up, I could either do book 2 in the Callista trilogy, which is by Kevin J. Anderson. And so his writing was quite to the point and easy to read. And so that I'm looking forward to that. Or the Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina. And I actually really like short stories. So I'm considering picking up this one tonight and seeing what we can get. It looks like we have short stories from Kathy Tyers, Timothy Zahn, Tom Veach and Martha Veach, A.C. Crispin, Dave Wolverton. Like I like all these so far. Which one did Kathy Tyers do? She did Bruce at Pakura, Truce at Pakura, Barbara Hambly again, David Bischoff, Daniel Keyes Moran, Kevin J. Anderson, Rebecca Mosta, Doug Beeson, Jennifer Robertson. I don't recognize everyone here, but I recognize some. I'm looking forward to getting to this. So I will talk to you guys later, and in the comments below, let me know what you thought of this.